Hi, I'm Derek, and I'm going to be your host today for another dramatic episode of Derek and his Drone. On today's epic adventure, we're going to swap out a RunCam Swift case. I've never done this before, so today, we're going to learn together. Let's get started. I accidentally damaged this case while I was installing it. I think the threads were galled inside the brass insert, and I thought that if I tried to work the screw in it, I could clean out the threads because brass is soft. And, well, that didn't happen. I actually broke the screw off right on the inside. I'm speculating that a piece of the brass came off from the insert and it got stuck at the base of the fitting, and I just prematurely bottomed out the screw in it. And these tiny, cheap Chinese screws are just, I hardly put any torque into it at all. It didn't feel like the screw should have broken while I was tightening it, but what do you know, that's what happened. Then I thought it would be a great idea to try to drill it out, and I overheated the fitting and melted the case, and so here we are. Now I need to replace it. In order to do this, we're going to have to remove the lens, we're going to have to remove the back of the camera, and then carefully swap the innards. But before I take this apart, I want to prep my new housing and just get it out of the bag and get it ready. I think that'd be a good idea. So here's the new housing. Hey, look at that. All the threads are good. And guess what? This time I'm going to be super careful to make sure that that doesn't happen again, because I don't want to buy another one of these. On the back of the case, there's a couple of screws that pretty much hold the thing together. And other than that, we're going to have to remove the lens. Now, I have looked at this a little bit before I started to make this video, and this lock ring is rather tight. It's actually so tight, in fact, that you're not going to be able to remove it with your fingers. At least, this is how it is for me. This is a metal ring, so I'm going to carefully use a small pair of pliers to help me loosen it up. Before I do that, I'm going to make a note of how my lens is orientated here on the front of the camera itself. And if I look, I can actually see that the edge of the R in the Rotor Riot logo is almost perfect with the center line of the camera. So we're going to call this the top when we remove this lens. I think I can take this one step further. I think an easy way to keep this orientation is going to be to put a small piece of tape on the lens. And then using a pen or a pencil or something else, I'm going to line it up with the center point on this camera, which is super easy because not only does the Rotor Riot logo have an arrow in it, but we have this center line here as well. And this is going to help me get the lens closer to focus when I put the camera back together, so I don't have to keep messing with it because it should be pretty close as it is. So I'm going to put a line on the tape. Right where the center point of all this is. I'm going to make it nice and dark. And if you're off a little bit, it's okay because chances are you're going to have to refocus the camera lens anyway. So I'm not super worried about being off by a fraction in one direction or the other, but at least this is going to give me a good starting point, so I only have to tweak the lens a minor amount when I put it back in there. I'm going to take my pliers, and I'm very, very carefully going to loosen this ring just a little bit to start. Now it's loose. And I'm going to remove my camera back. Just a couple of small Phillips screws. They should come out pretty easily. Camera back is now out of the way. We're going to need to extract this circuit board, and this is probably going to be the hardest part of this swap. especially in my case, because that brass fitting does look like it's touching the board a little bit. So maybe I'm going to take something small that I can pry with. And I'm going to try to get it in between the board and the case and try to lift it up a little bit. This doesn't seem to be working here. Let's try something else. Maybe a pick. Maybe I can get this in the screw hole. Maybe we'll try the other side. Like I said, I'm learning with you guys today, so bear with me here. Hopefully we can figure this out together. I don't know, it doesn't seem to be working. Maybe I can grab the connector here with some pliers if I'm careful and try to wiggle it out. No, that's not a good idea either. How are we going to get this board out of here? That's what we need to figure out. Looks like there's a little bit of a gap on the top of the camera. Maybe I can get in there with something. Also, while you're doing this, make sure you're careful that you don't scratch your lens. Oh, look, here we go. Oh, it's coming. So by taking a very small flathead screwdriver, this is actually made for eyeglasses, I was able to get in there just on the edge of the board and start lifting it up a little bit. Now the board's loose. Alright, cool. I think this was the hardest part. So I'm very carefully going to remove this. I'm going to put my case down. And see your camera sensor on the front? Do not touch this. Be very, very careful you do not get any debris on this. You will ruin your camera and you will be sorry. If you get anything on this, you're going to have a spot there. And that's all you're going to see is a spot, or sometimes you'll get a hair floating around on there. Not cool. Be very, very careful of that sensor. I can't emphasize that enough. So now that this is out of the case, I'm going to carefully insert it into the new one. Of course, making sure that the case is right side up. In it goes. I'm going to get my back on there to make sure nothing goes anywhere. And I'm going to get my screws kind of started just to make sure nothing falls apart. There we go. That's good for now. We'll come to that, back to that in a minute. Be super careful not to have anything land in there. I promise it'll ruin your day. So now I'm going to remove the lens from the original case. And I think I'm going to squeeze the lens itself and also the ring together and back it out. Okay, the lens has been removed, and there's a little bit of debris on there. Don't blow on this, but if you need to, you can use something like compressed air. If you have one of these, this could come in handy. This is just an air pump for cleaning a camera lens. You squeeze it, and it just blows air out the end, soft bristles. So I'm going to use this to try to remove that little bit of debris from the inside of the lens. I don't know, it could be leftover paint from when they painted it, or who knows. But you don't want anything in there. Alright, I think I'm reasonably satisfied with that. And now I'm going to start screwing the lens back into the case. Just going to take my time and go slow. Now that I'm close, looks like I've got maybe 1 or 2 more revolutions to go. I'm going to hold the ring and the camera lens together, and I'm going to bring the body into that lock ring. So it's definitely a little different on this. It's certainly going to have to get focused. The lock ring could have moved a little bit as well. So I'm going to bring that in. And tighten them together. Okay, that's pretty tight. I think that's a good place to start. Now I'll be able to focus this once I install it in the quad. Last step is I'm going to tighten these screws back up. Make sure they're in there all the way. The reason I waited is I wanted to make sure that I could get a good handle on the case and I didn't want anything falling inside. But I did want to have the whole thing together. Okay, looks like it's back together. I'm going to remove my tape. I'm going to grab a microfiber cloth and I'm going to clean that lens. Just using something soft. I'm going to get all my fingerprints off of there, make sure there's no residue left from the tape itself. There. I'm happy with that. I think that's it. I'm ready to install it now. And this time, I'm not going to mess it up. Well, there you go. We learned something together today. Isn't that special? Let's hit the sign-off checklist. Let's see. Check out HotDogFPV.com. They're a great group of people, and they make some awesome custom straps. Check me out on Instagram, @DerekandHisDrone. Click on like. Click on subscribe. Leave a comment. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.